Good afternoon. We're about to start in a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for a few late joiners to join us. So speak to you in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this supply chain advisory session for software release 21A. Today's session will focus on updating you on the new features that are made available as part of Oracle's quarterly release cycle. My name is Richard Wainwright, and I'm an account director at Evasys, focusing on the UK public sector. Today I'm your host, and I'm joined by Parth Dave, who works in our Supply Chain Centre of Excellence team. Parth will take us through the supply chain updates in release 21A, some hot topics, and everything we need to know about the main features of this release. Supporting us is Murugesh Shah, who is on hand to answer any questions throughout the webinar. We've extended this advisory session from the usual 60 minutes to 90 minutes to make sure we have enough time to cover the new features and to allow time for your questions. As always, we will make an extended slide deck available to you at the end of this session that covers all the features. We're going to cover 4 main areas. Firstly, I'll talk a little bit about our approach to Oracle updates before handing over to Parth, who will take you through the latest release. He'll provide an insight into the new features as well as highlighting things you should consider when deploying them. There's a lot to cover, so Parth's section today is probably going to take us somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour. After that, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about the role innovative technologies can play in supporting your Oracle investment. Today's focus will be on robotic process automation, or RPA, and how it can support regression testing and automating business processes. We will leave some time at the end to cover your questions, so please ask any questions as we go along using the chat function within this service. Murugesh will answer your questions as we go, but he may leave some questions until the Q&A session at the end, so please don't worry if you don't see an answer straight away. So moving on to our approach. When we talk about an update, there are generally 4 stages that we must consider as part of its deployment. Firstly, we need to analyze and consider each of the options that are available to be rolled out and the impact they have on user experience and productivity. In other words, do we need it? Secondly, we must plan how we deploy these updates by carrying out an impact analysis. We then test to ensure that there are no issues as we roll out. We find that this test stage tends to be the most intensive and time-consuming stage. So during the innovation session later, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we can help you with this. The completion of these 3 stages puts us in a position to launch the new version and new features. And our session today concentrates around the analysis and test stages of this process. So looking at the release summaries, this is how we present the summary information for each feature. Each slide includes the name of the feature with a short description to provide a brief on its purpose. We include a business benefit to help you to understand how the feature could be a benefit along with the outcomes it can provide. We then include a high-level impact analysis on the right-hand side of the screen, which includes 4 main areas. The first is the impact level. A low impact level would mean no large-scale impact, so regression testing is not really required and can be ignored. A high-level impact level would, of course, imply the opposite. Does the feature need to be enabled, or will it just appear post-upgrade? We highlight the need for configuration, because if configuration is required, then more planning time will also be needed. And we include a quick win gauge to indicate the level of effort and time required to get this feature set up. So that is all I intended to say about our approach, as I'm sure you want to hear from Parth and what he's got to say about release 21A. So Parth, over to you.
Sure, Richard. Thank you, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Those who were present earlier on the 20D sessions, welcome back for the 21A session. And those who are joining us for the first time, welcome to the Oracle Fusion 21A upgrade advisory session. I just thought that before jumping into 21A, let us have some recap of the most blockbuster features available in as a part of 20D. So what we have done is we have put out the top 5 features which we feel were the blockbuster features that made a good impact for the systems which got upgraded to 20D, and this is the list. Just to quickly summarize, the first one was to update the price on the purchase order for items requested from punch out marketplaces. Earlier we were not able to do that. If we have a punch out enabled, we are not able to have the option of changing the price on the requisition. After 20D, once this feature is there, we are able to update the prices if we want to on the PO and the PR level if it is coming from a punch out. The next one is prevent cancellation of partially received or invoiced purchase orders. What we feel is that this was one of such feature which definitely made a good impact and was welcomed very well, because it helps us save some errors, some stuck transactions if we are trying to cancel a purchase order which is partially received or even invoiced partially. From 20D onwards, it prevents us to perform so. The next one is deliver user specific procurement BI analysis content. Of course, the people who are much familiar with the BI, they would appreciate this fact that now, as a part of the analysis which we perform, if we have added, say for example, the buyer's name, and if we are trying to create a report of the OTBI which gives us an idea of what are the agreements that are going to get expired in, let's say, next 30 days, or any such condition which is given, if the user email ID is present or the username is present as a part of the column, it will go and trigger the report specific to that user. So it is more a user specific report. We don't need to put those conditions while we create the OTBI report. The next one would definitely, I would say, was the most key factor for the 20D, is that it will now prevent the GL period close if the costing subledger period are open. So we all would have come across, especially those who have inventory, order management, and the advanced modules enabled. They would much appreciate this feature, because it is now preventing us to make sure that we don't close the GL period before the costing subledger periods are closed. So it is actually suggested and recommended by Oracle that we first go ahead and close the subledger applications period, and then only we should go ahead and close the GL period. But since it was a human intervention, we could not foresee that everybody would follow that same steps. Hence, Oracle has added this feature of making sure that we are prevented. And the final one in this list is to enable overpicking for sales orders, transfer orders, and the work orders. Again, this implies to the advanced modules where SO, transfer orders, and WO are used. We are now able to overpick against what has been requested on those documents. So this is just a glimpse of what we called it as the blockbuster features of 20D. Of course, there were many, but these ones came out very well. Moving to the next is the analysis for the 21A. Now, before moving into this specific slide, I would request Richard to have a poll question on to what are the blockbuster features which our users felt that were more accepted by the organization. They can mark on their specific view. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Path. So I've just sent out the polling screen. You should see that now. So if you can click on which one you agree, and in a minute or two, probably not even that, we're getting some votes coming in now. I'm going to close that poll now and share it. So it looks like the favorite one there is prevent cancellation of partially received or invoiced purchase orders, closely followed by prevent general ledger period closed.
Yep, I feel most of our users would have the cross department being worked upon in their organizations, where we don't want to have much of discussions with our finance friends, because they keep on saying about these points, especially when we try to cancel any invoice which has already been made. So yeah, I think moving on to the next, Richard, thank you. Okay, to the next slide. This is the analysis done by us for the 21A upgrade. This time we have able to highlight around 42 new features, and this is the bifurcation what we feel based on our analysis. 13 of them are quick win, 13 of them are again quick win but which require some configuration. 4 of them are what we feel is quick win but opt-in, and then there are around 12 which is not so much of a major impact, hence we have kept them as not a quick win. Moving to next is the first category. These are the features which I'll be doing the analysis for and showing you the summary of what it means. They fall under the category of quick wins, but does not require any configuration, and they are by default available to us. The very first one is creation and management of supplier invoices with retainage payment terms. So as a part of 21A, what Oracle has done is that they have enabled the retainage information onto both the AP invoices as well as on the purchase orders. So for the purchase order part, I'll be just showing you the slide in just a moment, but this is referring to the invoice part where we can capture the retainage percentage over the invoice, and we can, based on our terms and conditions, we can then release the amount which has been retained once the terms and conditions have been fulfilled. So what we feel is that this is definitely going to be a high impact feature, does not need any enablement, configuration is also not required, and definitely this is a quick win. Moving to the next is the optimization of workflow rule evaluation. Now, this specific feature is mainly used if we are performing any setup configuration, especially for the rules which we define for the PO, PR, AP, any such rules which are defined in our system, and we are defining it through our BPM work list. Only in such cases, this optimization of workflow is enabled. Meaning, if we are using the BPM work list to configure the rules, system helps us to evaluate and optimize the rules which we have defined. For example, if we have added some parent and child attributes, it will make sure that it is not missing out any joins which are to be a part of those rules between the parent and the child. Now, of course, by looking at the names and the way it has been configured, there is a more user-friendly UI, I would say, or the page which is available by default to us. For the purchase orders and the requisition, we know that it is manage purchase order approval rules task and the manage requisition approval rules task. So the same is already available as a part of the existing features, and it is a out of the box functionality available to Oracle by Oracle. This definitely would be a medium impact, does not require any enablement and also not any configuration. Moving to the next, what we feel is definitely going to be much more useful for everybody is to have multiple email recipients while creating or while communicating the purchase orders. So if we select the communication method as email over the purchase order, we can have multiple recipients added onto the email field by separating them by comma. So if we need to have multiple recipients sent the purchase order information, we can do so by just putting the comma on the email field. This definitely would be an impact high with no enablement required, no configuration, and a quick win. Yes. The next one is identify purchasing documents that failed validation checks. So if you see on the screen, there are some red symbols which are available. Either it could be a cross or an exclamation sign. This helps us identify if there are purchasing documents that have failed certain validations. The validation could be as simple as that the attribute value of the source agreement line isn't valid, something like that, which is a seeded error available to us, but now it is available as a part of the UI itself on the pages like manage orders, view purchase orders, or even during the edit part. We can easily identify them and we can understand that what is the validation that it has failed. This would be a medium impact, which does not require any enablement, neither the configuration. The next one is which is available as a part of 21A, is specify a sold to legal entity while creating purchase orders. So currently we don't have such functionalities where we can have another sold to legal entity selected while creating the purchase order, but from 21A onwards we can still select a legal entity which is not the default legal entity of the requisition BU, neither it does not necessarily have to be linked with the destination organization which is placed on the purchase order. So now overall it is helping us in maintaining low setups for creating such purchase orders which are cross LE based. This definitely is an high impact which does not require any enablement, neither the configuration. Moving to the next is search for purchase orders using requisition attributes. So as a part of the advanced global search option, now there is a way to even search the purchase orders based on requisition attributes. Attributes like requisition number, description, or even the requester email. Even we can go ahead and search the PO and the blanket purchase agreement by using the buyer's email ID. This comparatively we feel is a low impact because it might be possible that people are already using the seeded manage orders option or the manage requisition task to search the specific document. But yeah, there is also another way to search it. Moving to the next, display negotiation message that are relevant to the recipient. So in the sourcing, we now have an option of displaying the unread messages that are available to the team or the specific person who is logged in on the display page itself. So while we click on the negotiation in the sourcing module, when we land to that page, the unread messages will be appeared right away on the landing page itself. So it is definitely an ease in the navigation to read out what are the messages that have been sent to that specific member. It's a medium impact with no enablement required, neither any configuration. Moving to the next is view amount in contract version history. Now this is definitely one such feature which could be helpful for auditing purpose. Say for example, if there are any amendments that have happened at the contract level and during that amendment amounts have been changed. So as a part of this feature, now we can have this the history of this amount getting changed available as a part of the field and can be viewed on the page of searching the contracts, as well as it can also be extracted in the Excel file in a tabular format. So it helps us in viewing the details of the contract changes easily on a single page. Impact is medium with no enablement, neither any configuration required. Moving to the next is the validate unit of measure conversion changes. Now this definitely would be much appreciated by our users who are using the inventory modules or even the cost accounting part of it, where now in 21A because of this additional feature, we will now not be able to perform any conversion changes if there is any usage of that specific item being already done. Say for example, if we want to go ahead and change the unit of measure conversion, now the system will perform the validation and it will check whether the conversion is going to affect any open transaction, be it on the inventory side or be it on the cost accounting side. If it does hamper the overall transaction, then it will forbid us in performing any unit of measure conversion changes. But if it doesn't have any effect, then it will allow us to perform the changes. This would definitely be a part of a high impact analysis, and it does not require any enablement, neither any configuration. The next one is check subinventory and supplier schedules in calculating shipping and receiving dates. So straightforward, this is helping us out in making sure that we are able to anticipate the shipping and the delivery dates for whenever we are calculating the overall schedules of the shipments to be received. So it basically says that any shipping or receiving dates when we are trying to calculate through the transit times, earlier it was just going to check the inventory organization, but now also it will go ahead and check the sub inventory, and even if we have mentioned the supplier schedules, it will still go ahead and cross check based on the dates that have been provided, based on the timelines that have been provided in the transit times, and accordingly it will help us to identify and calculate the dates of either the ship or the delivery. Overall impact is high, does not need any enablement, neither it requires any specific configuration. The next feature is relax restrictions for the item lot attributes. During the time of defining a specific item, if that item is enabled as a lot control, and down the line when we start using the item, we foresee that it does not really require any sort of details further captured for the lot purpose, we can still go ahead and change the overall lot attribute of the item, provided that there are no pending transactions, neither any open transactions on the inventory where this item has been already used. Only in that case it will allow us to go ahead and change the item lot control, maybe from full to none or any other cases. The overall business benefit for because of this feature would be it improves the product usability, and also it helps us providing greater flexibility by allowing us to change the lot attributes of an item. Overall impact is high, does not require any separate enablement, neither it requires any configuration. The next feature is allow changes to the unit of measure code. Now, this is definitely an interesting feature, because earlier, whenever we used to create any unit of measure, as soon as you hit the save button, the unit of measure code freezes out. That means it does not allow us to edit, neither it allows us to remove or change any of the specific letters which have been added on the unit of measure code. But because of this feature from 21A onwards, it will allow us to change the unit of measure code, provided that the unit of measure code has neither been linked directly to any of the item as a primary or a secondary unit of measure, neither it has been used anywhere in any of the transactions. So this mostly would be used if we are by mistakenly adding a wrong name of a unit of measure. At that time, before performing any such transactions, we can go ahead and cross check whether all the unit of measure codes are proper, and if not, then we can go ahead and change them. Overall impact definitely would be high, does not need any specific enablement, neither it requires any configuration. The next feature available is view manufacturer name and part number when receiving goods. So if we have captured the manufacturer name or the manufacturer part number against the item, we can view them at the time of receiving the goods. So in the receive expected shipments, the fields like manufacturer part number, manufacturer would be available. So it helps us to cross verify as to what item we are receiving, and against that we can have the necessary details about the manufacturer. Overall, it helps us to provide better visibility. It is a medium impact which does not require any enablement, neither any configuration. So all these were the ones which are available as part of default and does not require any configuration. Now we will move to the features list which are still default available to us but requires some configuration change. Starting with negotiate retainage for services. As I mentioned, as a part of 21A, the retainage feature is available across different modules. Like we just saw about the AP invoice, this is the part of sourcing, and the coming one would be on the purchase order. So as a part of the sourcing, if we enable the document styles in a way that it captures the retainage information. While creating the RFQ, we can have the retainage rate percentage captured, as well as the maximum retainage amount which we can withhold against the supplier. The added advantage of adding these retainage information in the RFQ is that it helps us to negotiate better with the suppliers if in case they disagree with what we have already written in the RFQ. Overall impact is high, does not require any enablement, but yeah, a small configuration is needed. The next one is create PO with the retainage terms. So as mentioned, on the PO line itself, friends who are belonging to EBS background or who has worked on EBS, they would know that we can create a complex PO with the help with the added fields like retainage information, where we can capture the retainage amounts and the retainage rates. Same feature is now available as a part of 21A also, where we can capture at the line level the maximum retainage amount and the retainage percentage for a specific PO line. The added advantage over here is that we can even go ahead and drill down one more level below the line, which is at the schedule level. So if we want to have different retainage information which should be captured at the schedule level, could be of multiple reasons, we can still do so. And invoices which are matched against such PO will automatically withhold the amount which has been mentioned on the PO line. That is the added advantage we now have from 21A onwards. Overall impact could be medium because it depends if the organization is using such feature of capturing retainage amount. It still requires a little bit of configuration, but it is available by default. The next one is configure commenting options for approval and rejection. So as a part of audit, in some organization, it is mandatory for us to have the comments added at the time of approving or rejecting any specific notification. So from now on, in 21A onwards, Oracle has given the option of putting out the comment option. We could make it as none, optional, and required, either at the time of approval and rejection. So overall, it helps us to make sure that we receive proper comments if there is any, let's say, rejection done by any approver for a document. Overall impact would be medium, does not need any enablement, but yes, it requires a small configuration, which is in the BPM work list. Moving to the next is carry forward open purchase orders for budgetary controlled, non-sponsored projects. This is purely applicable to organizations which follow budgetary controls. So this is a process which we can run, which helps us to move the purchase orders to the next budget year, and will automatically update the budget date according to the corresponding to the budget year in which the purchase order has been moved. It overall would help us to make sure that we are having a better budgetary control over the documents which are being raised. It would be medium impact depending on whether the organizations are using the budgetary control, and it requires a small configuration. The next one is route purchase orders for approval based on any segment for the charge account. Now, for this specific feature, I believe we all would appreciate it, because we have seen a lot of times while configuring the approval rules, till now we only had the option of keeping the balancing segment or the natural account segment as a part of the approval conditions. But now we can even have any such segment added as a part of the approval rules. So whatever segments are there in the charge account, we can have them added at the time of defining the approval rule condition. So the example shown over here is of the intercompany segment. So based on that, we can have our required approvals and can route the purchasing document or any other purchasing document except for PO as well to the required approvers. Overall, it helps us to provide more flexibility while defining the approval condition. It would be an medium impact and requiring a small configuration to use this feature. The next option is submit prebids before auction opens. So this feature will help us perform certain conversations with the suppliers even before the auction opens. As a part of our sourcing module, we can enable the prebids. So that's the configuration which is required in the document styles which we use. We have to enable the prebids, and because of this, the suppliers can clear out certain confusions if they have any. They can clarify certain questions with the organization and then can submit their bids. So overall, it helps us to perform a more streamlined process by clearing out certain questions of the supplier even before the auction starts. Overall, it's a medium impact, does not need any enablement, but a small configuration is required in the document styles. The next feature is make attachments mandatory during supplier registration. So we all know that as a part of our audit process or some internal process which an organization has, we can make sure that the suppliers are attaching the required documents as a part of our audit compliance while registering them in our organization. So from 21A onwards, the attachments which is available on the register supplier page, it is mandatory for them to attach the information. The business benefit out of this would be to avoid any manual follow-ups with the supplier and making sure that the suppliers are easily onboarded onto our organization. It's a medium impact with no enablement required, but a small configuration change to enable this feature or to use this feature. The next is assign numbers automatically to imported contracts. To those organizations who are using the enterprise contracts, defining the procurement contracts as a document, if they are importing the documents through our import process, if we have kept the automatic numbering on, it does not ask us to provide the number while we are creating the Excel file and uploading them. It will automatically pick up the number information from the setup which has been done. If we have kept the numbering method as manual, then while uploading the contract information, we cannot leave the contract number blank. That's already an existing part of the Oracle feature, but the automatic numbering is the new one which is available as a part of 21A. Overall impact would be medium, which does not require an enablement, but a small configuration change is needed. The next one is support item transaction defaults for additional transactions. When we say additional transactions, it could be some miscellaneous transactions, inter-org transfers, inter-organization transactions which are there. Like what we have mentioned is account alias, account alias issue, receipt, miscellaneous issue, direct inter-organization transfers. All these types of transactions which are there in inventory, we can now have the sub-inventories getting defaulted based on the setups which we do. So it helps us to improve the transaction process time so that the user does not need to select a specific sub-inventory. Instead, it will be defaulted based on the transaction type which has been selected. Overall impact is medium, does not need any specific enablement, but requires a small configuration change. The next is use query by example for cycle count sub-inventory selection. While performing the cycle count, it could be possible that there is a long list of sub-inventories available in that specific count, and it would be very difficult for a person to scroll down such huge list. Instead, now there is an option of specifically filtering out a sub-inventory by enabling the filter option and then putting out the sub-inventory name so that it can just filter out those which are maybe starting with A, or if we have specified a name, then it will filter out only those ones. Overall business benefit would be that it helps us to quickly search those specific transactions for which we are looking for. It's a medium impact, does not need any specific enablement, but it requires a small configuration change. Moving to the next is use RMA line price as the incoming receipt cost on an unreferenced RMA. Meaning sometimes we might have the customer items which are being used as a part of which are being received as a part of repair, and when we deliver those goods in our inventory, it is not necessary for us to have those items specifically received as a part of repairs to be costed on the item cost which is there on our inventory organization. Instead, whatever the RMA line price is mentioned, that should be the correct cost for such items which are being received in our inventory. So now from 21A onwards, as a part of cost management, we can create a separate cost profile which helps us to refer the RMA incoming receipt cost into our organization, and we can cost those specific items separately. Overall business benefit would be to appropriately cost those specific items if we are receiving items through RMA. Overall impact is medium, does not need any specific enablement, but requires a small configuration. The next one is integrate order management cloud with Oracle Fusion Payments. So an enhanced, which is known as the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, which is PCI DSS compliance, is now enabled between Oracle order management and the Fusion payment system. It basically allows users to select an existing credit card or add new credit card information onto the sales order so that the PCI DSS compliance is followed while performing the transaction. Overall, it's a we would say it's a medium impact and does not need any specific enablement, but requires a small configuration change. The next one is use global order promising to calculate the date changes on the sales order. So if we are using the order management, if the order management is enabled, we can enable this profile option to use this date changes to be calculated through GOP. The business benefit would be to automatically revise the scheduled ship date if the profile option is enabled. Overall impact is medium, does not need any specific enablement, but a small configuration change, which is the profile option, is required. Now coming to the list of quick wins, but which are opt-in in nature, means it is up to us. Do we want to use those features? Oracle has given us a selection criteria. If we allow, if we want to use those features, we need to check the tick the checkbox on the offerings where we have the option of opt-in. The first one is maintain detailed reservation for make, buy, and transfer supply orders. So it is now feasible for us to maintain the detailed reservation information to the sub-inventory locator, lot, serial level for any make, buy, and transfer supply orders. This feature ensures that we are reserving a specific document to an order either manually or by using the back-to-back process. Overall business benefit is that it helps us to have better visibility of what all orders are reserved. Overall impact, we consider it as a high, does need the enablement, means it's an opt-in feature, does not require any specific configuration. The next is reserve unreleased orders. So as a part of this manage reservation and pick page, we can now create a manual reservations for sales orders or transfer orders that are waiting for shipping. And we can now reserve those orders manually if the reservation step in the order management has even failed as well, because of maybe insufficient on-hand quantity or any XYZ reasons due to which the reservation had failed. We can still go ahead and reserve those unreleased orders as well. Overall, it helps us to effectively manage the reservations so that we can make sure that all the orders are reserved and the quantity are parked against those specific orders. Impact is high, does not need any configuration, but it is an opt-in feature, so we have to tick those specific checkbox in the offerings part. The next is use dynamic creation of account combination for inventory transactions. So maybe while performing any inventory transaction like miscellaneous receipts issue, if the account code combination has not been defined, then it usually errors out, and the user is stuck till the time the finance department or any such department is going ahead and creating that specific code combination. But from now onwards in 21A, we can have this dynamic creation of account code combination being allowed while we perform the inventory transaction. Now, the reason it has been kept as opt-in is because it purely depends on the organization's need. If we want to allow the user who are performing the inventory transactions to go ahead and create the account code combination into the system. Overall business benefit is that it helps us in completing those transactions easily, and we don't need to wait till the time the account code combination has been defined. Overall impact is high, does need an enablement, but does not need any specific configuration. Cost and account for inventory lot transactions. So I believe that these somewhat the screen is visible and we can identify on the type of the transaction. So when we are querying the cost account distribution, we can see that from 21A onwards, we can have even the transaction type as inventory lot split, and against those specific transaction, we can go ahead and create the account code the cost accounting distributions for such transactions as well. So while dealing with the items which are lot controlled, there might be possible that we are performing certain transactions on that specific lot, and if we want to have an accounting done on those specific transaction as well, from 21A onwards, it is feasible. Overall impact is high. It is an opt-in feature, but does not require any specific configuration. So these were the features which are available as a part of 21A. I would now like Richard to take it forward, please.
Brilliant. Thanks, Parth. Very helpful. Making good progress there, actually, on time, I think. Faster than we forecast. Hopefully everyone on the call found that interesting and saw some real value in this new release, and looking forward to getting some benefits from it. Before we move on, I see there's some questions are coming across on the chat. Please feel free to send your questions across, and I think Regresh is answering most of them as they come in. But please feel free to answer more. We need to keep them busy. Okay then. So let's now look at, here we go, leveraging technology. How can we leverage this technology to help with facilitating the release cycle, and how can drive more value from your Oracle applications? That's what we're trying to achieve here. So we've created a series of packages across 3 distinct technology areas: RPA, analytics, and chatbot, also known as digital assistants. With RPA, we look at how we can help our customers automate regression testing for each quarterly cycle to save time and provide focus where it's needed. We also look at how we can save time through the automation of business processes. From an analytics perspective, our VBA, or value-based analytics, provides key information about 4 important areas. These are the identification of processes that can be optimized and/or automated. From a system adoption perspective, we can help identify areas and regions for low adoption rates and provide recommendations to improve adoption. We look at the data outputs that you and your team require to provide greater visibility and insights. And we cover audit and compliance that looks at regulations and segregation of duties, as well as ensuring compliance with your internal SLAs. The other point to raise here is that data analytics shared across the business can lead to much better outcomes, but data is often siloed within business units or departments. We understand that sometimes this is for good reasons, but you really should think about whether having a more holistic view of data from across the organization could help you. What about those non-Oracle solutions that you may have? We can talk about how Oracle Analytics Cloud and the wider range of technical solutions can help to bring the data together and into Oracle Analytics to get the most from the data you have. Finally, chatbots or digital assistants. Many of us are familiar with these and are dealing with them on a regular basis in our personal lives, particularly when we're looking for help from online organizations. It's fair to say that over recent years they've come a long way and can provide positive outcomes without the frustration of being put on hold while you wait for someone to come available. We're also seeing how organizations see the benefit of chatbots and want to use them internally to support their own internal teams. They can be used for improving system adoption, through an improved user experience, or extended to help reduce departmental overheads by answering customer and internal queries. Whilst HR seems to be the most popular area for these digital assistants, they can be used in any department and are often seen as an inexpensive, quick win with a great return on investment. Today, I'm going to talk in more detail about RPA, and we'll look at analytics and chatbots in the next advisory sessions for 21B and 21C. But to help us decide which order we should do those in, I've just got another poll which I'll send out, see which you prefer to see next. Bear with me a second while I get up and running. Okay. So the poll's out now. Just give it a few seconds. Brilliant. I think that's everybody's voted is going to. Oh no, a couple of late ones. Okay, so it's about a 2-to-1 ratio. 2-to-1 ratio. Twice as many people want to see analytics that want to see chatbots next. So I suspect that's the order in which we'll do it. So next quarter we'll cover analytics and then chatbots the quarter after. Okay, so thank you for that. So moving on then and looking at RPA. There we go, get the screen up. We can break RPA down into two main areas where you can see significant benefits. These are regression testing and process automation, to show here on this slide. Firstly, from a regression testing perspective, we've included a table of the number of standard supply chain processes we've already developed automated test scripts for. It's important to note that should you have, if you like, non-standard processes, we're going to need to modify any test scripts to suit your specific environment, but that's not beyond the realms of possibility. To look at the benefit this has delivered, our Centre of Excellence team has analysed the savings seen by our clients that have used RPA to upgrade supply chain management from 20C to 20D. And by running these processes alone, they found a minimum saving of 25% due to RPA. However, I think it's very fair to say that as more scripts are written and developed, we believe this will be a extremely conservative figure. So there will be huge savings to be made here within testing. And what's certainly true, we've found the more time and energy spent or you invest in tailoring these processes up front, the more you will see in return. Moving on to process automation then. We spoke earlier about VBA or value-based analytics solution can be used to help identify the business processes that are candidates for automation. Once those processes have been identified, we recommend investing time up front to standardize or even redesign the process before you automate. This is important to get the best process before you automate it. Forrester wrote an interesting paper last year in May, talking about the importance of RPA in the modern world, and interestingly, how much of a role it will play in the post-pandemic world. They've included some golden rules within that paper, one of which is they say it's vitally important to carry out this standardization or process rewrite step, even if it increases your initial costs. This is important because it will lead to a more sustained automation with improved returns. They also said that it is important to have a well-documented process map. The automation of a process is normally one component of a much wider process. So you need to ensure that the automation factors in any dependencies, and a detailed process map is going to help you with that. Some of the benefits that we see automation delivering include an automated process is available 24/7. If you have a large number of journals, for example, that you need to enter, this can be run overnight using RPA. This makes RPA a highly efficient tool for completing repetitive and laborious tasks. Another benefit is the speed at which things are completed. Not only can processes be performed at many times faster, but process automation doesn't have the day-to-day distractions that we all as people experience. The avoidance of these distractions also provides benefits over the level of accuracy. Give a robot a task and it will deliver it time and again consistently. The final point is focus. Many processes that are automated revolve around data entry. If we take these essential but mundane processes away from our employees, it allows them to focus on the value-add activities where their expertise is needed most. Hopefully you found that useful, and if it's something that you'd like to explore further, please contact us and we'll be delighted to work with you to identify how we can benefit from RPA. So I've seen some questions coming in, and just to allow people to maybe put in a few extra questions at the end, I'll just move on into what happens next before we do a final Q&A, if that's okay, and close the session. So when we've finished this session, we'll circulate a copy of the presentation and a recording for all attendees, complete with a feedback form. If you can take the time to complete and return that feedback form, we'd greatly appreciate it, because that really does help us tailor and sharpen our act for future webinars for the next releases. And we want to keep this going quarter on quarter and just getting sharper and sharper if we can to benefit yourselves. If anything you've heard today, or you want to hear more about additional services around quarterly updates or learn more about innovation, if any of that is of interest to you, please speak to your project manager or email us on business@evasysglobal.com, and we'd be delighted to get involved. Finally, sessions. This is session 5 of a series of 7. There's 2 more to go. One's later on this afternoon, I think it's 5 o'clock UK time, which is on HR Help Desk and Recruiting Cloud. And then on Wednesday afternoon, I think that's 3 o'clock, we've got one on global payroll updates. If you want to register, if you can visit our website, you can register there. Okay, so Rugesh, I don't know if you can hear me or if you're on mute.
Yes.
Have we got any more questions left over you want to address in this final session?
Yes, Richard. We kept 2 questions deliberately open so that we can loud out and Parth can answer. Hi, Parth. One of the first question is for UAM, validate mode will be like, means will system throw the checkbox to be marked if validated yes?
Okay, so if I got it correct, so the question is about the validation on the unit of measure code, correct?
Correct. And how
Yeah.
system will throw the validation message?
So it will, as I mentioned, if the unit of measure has been assigned to a specific item as a primary or a secondary unit, and the item has been used as a part of any other transaction, it won't allow us, and the system would throw out an error message as a part of normal pop-ups which we receive if any errors are coming up on our screen. So the same way, the system would trigger out an error message. I
Munish,
hope it answered.
yes, the question is from Munish, so I
Yep.
hope that answered. And Parth, second question is regarding the attachments on onboarding processes. The question is attachment onboarding, does this apply to internal supplier registration or not?
So the link or the snapshot which we have got on the Oracle documentation refers to the external supplier registration process. But however, I think once we have a specific pre-prod or a test environment to confirm on this, we would definitely revert back to the person who has raised this question, whether it also applies to internal one. But as of now, what we got the information from Oracle is through the external registration process for the supplier.
So the continuous question from Moni's side with regards to the UAM validation is, for the question he got the answer, but his concern is regarding if system will throw the error, so how user will encounter it while defining UAM code.
How user will encounter it while defining the UM code, right?
Codes, yes.
So this is after once the unit of measure code has been defined, and if we want to change it by mistake, the name of the unit of measure of the code name has wrongly been written, and if you want to go ahead and change it, till now the code field was grayed out, but because of this feature this would be enabled. And as I mentioned, only and only if you are not having the unit of measure linked to an item which is already been transacted, in that case only the system would allow us to perform the changes. So the person, for example, who is handling the definition of unit of measure or any setups that are being maintained related to the inventory part, he or she would be able to go ahead and change the unit of measure code on that specific task if the item has not been transacted. So this applies more to the sysadmin person who is responsible for performing the setup changes in the system, and not the end user who is performing the actual inventory transaction. Brukesh, I hope it did answer.
Yes, you did answer. And with this, I believe we don't have any other question to be answered.
Okay, then. Thanks, Murugesh, and thank you, Parth. Thanks very much for the effort you put into that today. It's been great. That just leaves me then to say thank you to all of the attendees for taking the time out of their day to attend this session. We really do appreciate it. We know everyone's busy. We hope that it's been useful, and they will not hesitate to contact us if there's any way we can be of service. Hope to see you again soon on maybe another one of our advisory sessions. So all that's left then to say thank you.